Good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, April 25th, 2023. I'd like to call the meeting of the Peoria City Council to order. I'd also like to welcome everyone that's here attending in our council chambers, as well as our listening audience at WCBU. I'd also like to welcome the audience watching on cable channel 22. The council mics are open. Please call the roll.
Mayor Ali. Councilmember Allen. Councilmember Sear. Councilmember Grayup. Councilmember Jackson.
Here.
Councilmember Jensen. Councilmember Kelly.
Here.
Councilmember Euler.
Here.
Councilmember Riggenbach. Councilmember Ruckriegel.
Present.
And Councilmember Velpula.
Present.
We have a quorum present, Madam Mayor.
Perfect, thank you. Everyone, please stand and join me for a moment of silent prayer, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk?
We are at proclamations, and we have one proclamation this evening.
Okay, our proclamation recognizes Arbor Day, and we have joining us our Director of Public Works, Mr. Rick Powers, our Superintendent of Operations, and the Assistant Director of Public Works, Mr. Cy Maroon, and we have the Program Supervisor of Forestry, Mr. Sean Johnson. If you gentlemen are here, can you please come forth? Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees can reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce life-giving oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, fuel for our fires, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community. And whereas trees, wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. Now therefore I, Rita Ali, Mayor of the City of Peoria, Illinois, do hereby proclaim April 28th, 2023 as Arbor Day in Peoria, Illinois.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. This is going to be really brief because my part in this is this big. As I said the first day I met you all, the thunder doesn't steal the lightning, and that's standing behind me. Cy Maroon, our Deputy Director, works real hard, along with Sean, who is our actual forestry chief. So I would like to turn this over to them because that's who does all of this work for Peoria. So if you don't mind, I'm going to step aside and not take any credit at all for this.
Thank you, Director. It's all about the team.
Hello, everyone. I just want to say thank you for the proclamation. We're celebrating Tree City USA. We're in our 30th year of that. We recently got a huge sign that we have to put up throughout in the city somewhere. And since I've been on board about 6 years, I focus on planting trees throughout the city. I put a lot of focus in the Heritage District. Since it being the older part, when I first started, there was a lot of dying trees down there. So we've been removing a lot. And if you look around, you see a lot of trees that are going in the 61605 area code. And here recently, Ameren contacted us, and I'm working with them. They want to do some tree planting this fall. So there's something that works in the 61605 because they have less of a tree canopy, 20%. We like to have it around 50% tree canopy throughout the city. But I just want to say thank you all.
You're welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for having us again for this annual proclamation that we received for lost my train of thought, Arbor Day, because we have Tree City USA going on also. One thing I just wanted to mention is that Arbor Day is an annual event, and then we tie in our mulch giveaway with this weekend. So Arbor Day is on the 29th. We plant a tree in partnership with the Park District and the South-West Kiwanis. And they purchase a tree every year. We work with the Park District for a location to replenish what may be dying down on the riverfront. So we're replenishing those trees on an annual basis. Tree City USA is just another component of something that we deal with and or that we qualify for, and we're awarded that designation annually. And I want to say that Sean does a great job of doing. It's not an easy designation. There's quite a bit of a criteria that we have to meet, and he needs the credit for that because he actually maintains all that information and makes sure that we're following the guidelines for Tree City USA. So once again, for 30 out of I think it's 46 years that Tree City USA has been a designation, the city of Peoria has received that for 30 times now. So we take that very seriously, and it's important to us and it's important to the community. So we just want to thank you again, and I just wanted to mention one more time that this Saturday from 8 to 1, we're having our second annual mulch giveaway this weekend. So it's open to the public, and we're looking forward to having some good weather that day to move some mulch, which, by the way, we produce because it comes from our trees that come down from windstorms and ice storms and trees that are dying. So we're actually in the recycling phase of our mulch. We don't purchase it. It's something that we deal with on a daily basis. We have plenty of trees to come down. So Sean's doing a pretty good job now of replenishing those trees as well to get it back to, as he's talking about, the canopy in the city. So, but once again, thank you very much for the designation.
Any idea, Superintendent, how many trees we plant a year? Mr. Johnson?
I believe last year we're somewhere between 75 and 90 trees
Okay,
that we planted last year. First few years is around 30 trees.
okay.
So this year we hope to surpass 100 in-house, and then whatever we work with Ameren on.
Wonderful. Thank you all for your service. Madam Clerk?
We are at the approval of the minutes.
Councilmember Euler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I move to approve the minutes of the regular city council meeting held on April 11th, 2023 as printed.
Seconded by Councilmember Allen. Any questions? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at the consent agenda. 23-133 is a communication from the Mayor and Corporation Council with a request to approve the declaration of local state of emergency. 23-134 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Community Development with a request to approve the 2023 Annual Action Plan for submittal to the Department of Housing and Urban Development with a total 2023 grant allocation of $2,805,022. 23-135 is a communication with a request to approve the low bid of J.C. Dillon, Inc. in the amount of $494,340 for the culvert replacement tributary C under Glen Avenue, with an additional authorization of $49,460 for contingencies, for a total contract award of $543,800. 23-136 is a communication with a request to approve an agreement with GIS Workshop LLC for work order management software services in the amount of $16,873. 23-137 is a communication with a request to approve the license agreement for the Tyler ERP system with Munis and Intergov and associated maintenance and support services. 23-138 is a communication with a request for the following. A, to approve a local agency agreement for the jurisdictional transfer of Glen Avenue from Sheridan Road to Illinois Route 40, Knoxville Avenue, from the county highway system to the municipal street system. And B, adopt an ordinance approving the transfer of a portion of Glen Avenue from Sheridan Road to Illinois Route 40, Knoxville Avenue, from the county highway system to the municipal street system. 23-129 is a communication with a request to adopt an ordinance related to fire services recovery with third-party vendor. 23-139 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Council with a request to adopt an ordinance approving the private activity bond allocation of 2023 volume cap to the Tri-County River Valley Development Authority. 23-140 is a communication with a request to adopt an ordinance vacating 194 feet by 16 feet of an alley running parallel and perpendicular to Van Buren Street and bounded generally by 113 Van Buren Street, Northeast Jefferson Avenue, and the Greater Peoria Mass Transit Campus at 2105 Northeast Jefferson Avenue. 23-141 is a communication with a request to concur with the recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance rezoning property from a Class R4 single-family residential district to a Class I2 railroad warehouse industrial district for the property located at 111 Van Buren Street, Peoria, Illinois. 23-142 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R4 single-family residential district for an urban farm for the property located at 1603 and 1607 South Westmoreland Avenue, Peoria, Illinois. 23-143 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R3 single-family residential district for a short-term rental for property located at 611 East Tripp Avenue, Peoria, Illinois. 23-144 is a communication with a request to concur with a recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class R4 single-family residential district, approving for a short-term rental for the property located at 1404 West Circle Road, Peoria, Illinois. 23-145 is a communication with a request to concur with recommendation from Planning and Zoning Commission and staff to adopt an ordinance approving a special use in a Class P1 parking district for an active recreational park for property located at 112 West Nebraska Avenue. 23-146 is a communication from the City Manager and Finance Director Comptroller with a request to receive and file the month ended February 28, 2023 unaudited financial report, and that concludes your consent agenda.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Are there any items to remove from consent? Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. 23-135, please.
Thank you. Other items to remove? Can I get a motion to approve the remaining items? Moved by Councilmember Velpula, seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Any other discussion? Please cast your ballots. Councilmember Riggenbach? Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
23-135 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Public Works with a request to approve the low bid of J.C. Dillon, Inc. in the amount of $494,340 for the culvert replacement tributary C under Glen Avenue, with an additional authorization of $49,460 for contingencies, for a total contract award of $543,800.
Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
I'd like to ask the manager, we put in a new culvert under the red carpet car wash because it was, there were some real problems going on there. And it seems to me that, why was this not included in that project? It seems like this is running up costs for something we already knew was a problem.
I'm going to ask our Public Works Director, Director Powers, to respond to that question, if you could.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. It was something we did discover, but we discovered it while we were doing that repair. And for us to have incorporated that into the repair, meaning we would have had to go on to design, because again, the significance of the project in and of itself, which would have held us up. And as you know, that issue with red carpet was holding up that business. So it was because of the urgency of that project, we discovered this and then went through the routine project of planning, design, so on, and letting to get to this point. No other reason.
Thank you. How are things downstream from this project?
There are plans downstream from this
Oh,
project,
there are?
yes, for stormwater, yes. There actually are plans citywide. I guess I think we're at the point of like 12.5 million this year committed to the capital improvement plan community investment plan. I can't get over the CIP, what I always call it capital, but anyway, about 12.5 million this year, and some of that is downstream from Glen.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Director, and thank you, Madam Mayor, and I will move for approval.
A second. Councilmember Riggenbach? Any other discussion? Please hold on just a minute. Sorry. I need to close it and reopen here. Getting ahead of me. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at regular business. 23-147 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Public Works with a request to approve the sole source purchase of pavement marking material from Colorado Paint in the amount of $79,687.50.
This requires a two-thirds vote of the council. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to ask Director Powers to come to the microphone again to talk through this item.
Thank you again, Mr. Manager, Mayor, Council. This is sole source because of the type paint. It's reflectivity, and again, the amount that you see is we are actually in partnership with the county in purchasing this, but it is a sole source purchase because of the type paint that we use for road markings that we've adopted through the years. Its availability is scarce. Well, I'd say specialized, not scarce.
Any questions? Councilmember Euler?
Move to approve.
Sarah, seconded by Councilmember Seer. Any other discussion? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
23-148 is a communication from the City Manager and Chief of Police with a request to approve the sole source annual subscription contract with ShotSpotter, Inc. for ShotSpotter Flex, a gunfire location, alert, and analysis service with a recommendation of a 3-year renewal in the amount of $300,984 per year. And this requires a two-thirds vote of council members, no less than 6 votes. And there, on your desk, there is a handout of a presentation.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to turn the floor over to the police chief to walk through a presentation as well as discussing the importance of ShotSpotter to the department.
Thank you. Chief?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Council, City Manager. We are going to present, or Jacob Mushan, our analyst, will present to everybody of how and why we use ShotSpotter, how the police department uses it. You've had presentations on kind of the software part of it, the technology of it, but we thought it would be important that the general public have an understanding of how we use it. With me, I have the Assistant Chief and Captain Briggs. Captain Briggs oversees the investigative divisions who on a daily basis really follow up on a lot of the ShotSpotter incidents. So without further ado,
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. My name is Jacob Mushan. I'm the analyst for the Peoria Police Department. I know we have a presentation, a PowerPoint that we sent over to go over tonight, and I don't know if that's up yet.
Is Stacy around? Can you help pull it up, or?
That's okay. So one of the biggest ways that we at the Peoria Police Department use ShotSpotter is by combining it with NIBIN to enhance police investigations. So NIBIN is the National Integrated Ballistic Information Network, and what this does is when police officers go to a shooting scene, they gather shell casings. These shell casings are then scanned for what is called a ballistic fingerprint. Much like a fingerprint is unique to a human, ballistic fingerprints are marks left on the shell casing that are unique to each individual weapon. Through this process, we develop what we call investigative spider webs. By doing this, we are able to link multiple shootings together. And what I had planned to show you is how this process was done, but I will talk you through it. So when we get a ShotSpotter alert, in that alert, officers are able to hear the actual rounds fired. They are able to see the exact location of where each round came from, and then it also is associated the case number with our records management system or the police report number. That same report number is then put into NIBIN. The big identifier that we use is when those shell casings are collected, they're put into evidence bags. Those evidence bag numbers are then also correlated. What this process allows us to do is when we pick up 30 different shell casings, and half of them are 9mm and half of them are 45mm, and we can take that and through that process determine how many other shootings that 9mm was used in and how many other shootings that 45 were used in. If that 9mm is, for instance, associated with 5 or 6 other shootings, we can then start identifying common suspect, common victims, common car identifiers or victim information, and we start developing investigative leads. One of the earliest times we actually used this was through a federal indictment, and what happened under that process was that they developed several confidential informants who talked to police officers about certain shootings that happened years prior. One of those examples was a shooting that happened in the way they said it was sometime in 2016. It was warm out. I remember it was on Arago Street, and it was near the end, maybe near around a red house. Well, going through a lot of data that way is very hard to find. So through ShotSpotter, we were able to limit the months to the warm months, limit the year to 2016, and then identify 4 shootings that happened on Arago Street around that identifier. Then by identifying and reading through those cases, we were then able to identify which one they were shooting. The particular shooting, nobody was injured, but through NIBIN, that weapon was linked to 6 other shootings that included 2 gunshot victims. During this federal indictment, that act made it into the overt acts and was actually processed under the federal indictment and was found guilty, and those 2 of those shootings were solved. Through that same process, under that same federal indictment, 4 homicides were solved, 2 attempted homicides were solved, and 36 other shootings were solved through that process alone. The biggest way that we're now using it today, year to date, is we have seen a large increase in high capacity rounds fired. One of the biggest reasons behind that is what we call Glock or SEER switches. These switches take automatic or take pistols and make them automatic weapons by allowing the pistol to fire while the person just holds down the trigger. They no longer have to repeatedly pull that trigger. Through this process, being able to identify all those high capacity rounds and seeing where they're coming from in the same association, our Federal Firearms Task Force has been able to take about 30 Glock switches off the streets in the last year, as well as 3D printers that are used to print those Glock switches. Without ShotSpotter, our officers wouldn't have these shell casings. Multiple studies have shown that we are only aware, without ShotSpotter, we are only made aware of about 20% of the shootings that happen in Peoria. Before ShotSpotter, we only knew of about 15%. So now, through knowing about these shootings, getting more shell casings and building more cases, we're able to solve more gun crime through this process. And that's one of the biggest ways in which we use ShotSpotter from an investigative standpoint.
Any questions?
Councilmember Seer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, how many years have we been using this system?
2013?
13 years.
2013.
13 years. Can you talk to us about one bad incident or bad experience from having this system the last 13 years?
Well, in my just under 2 years, there hasn't been any, but the assistant chief's been here much longer and been part of it. He can speak on it.
I'm not aware of any bad experience. We've used it to support several cases. We've used it in litigation. It's a forensic tool. I'm not aware of any bad experiences.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Welcome. Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen, for your presentation this evening. Can you talk a little bit about the policy and procedure standpoint, how those are drafted around the ShotSpotter technology, and maybe when you all are auditing those policies and procedures to make potential changes based off of community responses or just best practices in general when it comes to this technology?
So, first off, the department, I just want to talk about the department in general. With all our policies, we're CALIA certified. It's a national standard. They're reviewed. We just went through a major review of all our policies, and we're going to pick up our certificates. And we passed with flying colors. We're picking up a certificate later this year. So all our policies are CALIA certified. In addition to that, all our policies are on the city webpage. Anybody can see them. We're fully transparent with all our policies. So they're vetted often. They're nationally certified. And we do review our policies by general order. We review them annually. So the ShotSpotter policy, we had several meetings about ShotSpotter. We provided it to anybody that wanted to see it. We talked through any issues people had with it. So that's pretty much the review on our policies.
Thank you, Assistant Chief Dixon. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for putting this together, and Mr. Mushan, this is just fascinating to me to see. We know at a high level the benefits of ShotSpotter and locating where the shots are fired and the response time improvements and whatnot, but to actually be able to use this as further information and putting the pieces together to solve the crimes, I think this is just shows again the tremendous benefit that this provides us. And Chief, if you could just mention briefly, when we got the license plate readers, we talked about Flock and that they had a similar product. So could you just give us a little background on how they compare and what made us decide to stick with ShotSpotter?
Flock does not compare at all. Their program is called Raven. It does not provide the support and the data that ShotSpotter does. It's not. They're probably 15 years behind where ShotSpotter's at. So it's not a system that we'd be prepared to look at any further. ShotSpotter's the top of the line for what we need.
And last week, or at our last council meeting, when we had the ShotSpotter representatives here, I think they did a nice job of pointing out that ShotSpotter is one of the tools in their arsenal, if you will, that they have other things that are coming online and are going to add to the value that they're going to be able to provide to their clients. So I think this is really a tremendous tool that you have, and I would be happy to make a motion to approve.
Okay. Seconded by Councilmember Kelly. Continuing the discussion, Councilmember Kelly.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just question occurred to me. Is there a unique sonic signature to a particular firearm and a particular cartridge?
Yeah, so ballistic sound wave is very unique, and that's the way the system works in cancel outs, so we don't get other alerts from car backfires or anything else. When we have that question on can you identify the caliber or more realistically who shot first or where shot first, ShotSpotter provides a investigative leads summary, and they actually dig deep into that, and their experts examine those sound waves to determine that information.
Can you identify the weapon? Can you say, this is the same sonic signature that we got in this incident and that incident?
No.
No. Okay. Thanks very much. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you for your presentation. I just had a clarification question. It says that ShotSpotter, if the shot is fired indoors or from inside of a vehicle, it will most likely not be sensed by ShotSpotter. And oftentimes, we hear that when there's gunfire, it's usually one target at another. And I at least have been under the impression they've been in vehicles. Is this correct? Is this accurate? Or
It can come from vehicles, and we know if it's a moving target. ShotSpotter guarantees it when it's outside that it's a shots fired. Right? We still get the alert. We'll still get the ShotSpotter depending on where it's at, how deep inside the vehicle it is. If the sound comes out, we'll still be able to get it, but the guarantee from ShotSpotter is those that are shot outside.
Okay. All right. And just one last question. I noticed you mentioned in some of your background summary how this device has been was very effective in the bomb squad situation. Is that gang issue still, gang problem, still an issue in and around the city? And if it is, do you see this as being critical in arrest convictions as you were in the bomb squad situation?
To say that we don't have a gang problem or group problem and that one federal indictment got rid of that problem, no, we still have that issue. But what this does is it builds association. So when we look at what information we get from ShotSpotter and then that correlation with NIBIN as well, what we're looking at is the correlation of the groups that are involved from shooting to shooting. And the group tells us a lot about who may have that weapon. So when we look at particular weapons, we say, well, it's the same handful of people, 5 or 6 people that are consistently involved in all 6 of these, and they're part of this group. And we know that they're fighting with this group. And so that gives our detectives insight into why the shooting is happening and who may be involved, and then who they can start developing more information on. So it'll continue to be a critical tool in that process.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Velpula?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Chief, for the presentation. I have a few simple questions. So I see that this what is this? ShotSpotter, it's been in place from 2013, right? So just for the knowledge sake, what are the other opportunities that are available for the city of Peoria? Because we've been having the same thing for 10 years. Just for the knowledge sake, what other softwares like this exist?
I think ShotSpotter right now is the key one that would work for us. I don't know of any other technology other than this new Raven that Flock has been putting out, and it really doesn't match up to what ShotSpotter does.
Okay. And then just another clarification question. I think it is this entire software is based on the sound acoustics. My question is, how many times while you're here, how many times the police were deployed, and how many times it really resulted in? Because I was reading a report by Chicago Police Department, and there's a controversy, there's a different opinion about the ShotSpotter's ability to really reflect the actual deployment versus the actual find out.
So the case you're referencing for Chicago, the biggest issue and the reason that case came up was actually through policy. So through our policy, anytime a ShotSpotter alert goes off, officers must respond and they will always write a report. So what we've been able to do is through that process, just this last year, our ShotSpotter accuracy backed by evidence has been 92%. So the reason and the evidence we use is whether that's a victim, whether it's a witness saying they saw it, whether it's car damage, house damage, whatever sort of evidence that may be that quantifies that ShotSpotter alert, we're at 92% of all the alerts result in some form of evidence, which backs that up is that of how accurate the system really is and how well it works for us.
Okay. And the last question I have is the coverage area. So was this coverage area the same from 2013, or are we moving the coverage areas based on the crimes that are reported in that area, or it was a given mile radius or mile square radius?
So it originally started in 2013 with the southern coverage of 3 square miles. In 2014, expanded to the northern area of another 3 square miles. We're also this year adding another 1 square mile north of where the 3 square miles are right now. During that process, we asked ShotSpotter, we asked them, we said, treat us like we're not a customer, evaluate our data, and determine should we still be where we are or should we readjust our coverage area. So we sent them all of our data, they analyzed it and came back, and it showed that we should still be exactly where we are. So we continuously reevaluate to ensure that ShotSpotter is deployed where it needs to be.
So from 10 years, we have the same area,
Correct.
but little expansion on that.
Small expansion, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Graham?
Where is that small expansion going to take us?
I know it's taken us up, I'm not sure the street, but it's taken us up 2 blocks north from where our current coverage is. So the way the system works is it triangulates, so we looked at covering other areas, but with 1 square mile, we couldn't get it, but we could push our northern boundary up, and it goes up by about 3 blocks to the north. I don't have that, but I can get you that answer, sir.
Would it be McClure, north of McClure?
It's north of McClure.
And Corporation Counsel Hayes, is this requiring a 2/3 vote because it's sole source?
There we go. Yes, it is a sole source. I think that we often extend relationships with present vendors, and that is an exception to sole source. But because of the interest and issues, we felt that it was appropriate to make certain it was approved as a sole source. So it is a sole source. There's an exception for extending present arrangements, but because of all the intrigue and issues, the number of meetings we had, we felt that we should put it out there as a sole source and not rely on the prior relationships. Thank you.
And probably the same thing for the Colorado paint appropriation. The same concept.
Agreed, because of the issue of there may be other options in the market, and we are confident that this is the appropriate choice. So consistent with what Director Powers said and what the chief has said, there may be competitors out there, but we felt so confident in these, we felt that presenting it in this fashion was appropriate and blended all of the intent of the council's ordinances. Thank you.
I'm sold on the technology. I'm curious if there was some review of what other programs might exist that would give us this type of detection of where shots are fired.
So we touched earlier on Raven, and I can go a little bit more in depth on why it's not as accurate as ShotSpotter. So the ShotSpotter, as you saw through the presentation last time, it goes through a review process. Each ShotSpotter alert is verified by an audio expert and before it's sent to our police officers. Raven, number one, doesn't offer that. So our officers will get every single alert, every single noise that the system picks up, and it'll be up to our officers to determine whether or not that's a gunshot. After the first week, I can tell you from listening to that audio, a lot of them were not gunshots, as I could hear a noise and then I could hear the car starting, clearly being a backfire. So when we look at our officers being able to respond and knowing what they're responding to, Raven doesn't offer that. The other thing that they don't offer that we have, that ShotSpotter officers, is being able to send an expert to testify in court, is being able to do those in-depth investigations on that audio for homicides, officer-involved shootings, and other incidents. ShotSpotter offers all of that, and Raven does not.
So nationally, are there basically only 2?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Councilmember Jensen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to make a couple comments. I think that ShotSpotter is an incredible tool. The city's been utilizing it for 10 years since I joined this council, and I think it's very important, and it's been very important to the police and to the older neighborhoods where it's being utilized. I'm pleased to see it expanded by a mile up north. I think that's very important. And I'm very pleased that this is going to be one of my last votes, is to extend this contract to this program. And I just wanted to also commend former Mayor Jim Ardis. I believe it was sort of his idea and his initiative to bring ShotSpotter here. So I wanted to commend him and thank him and just acknowledge that, and just keep up the good work. And hopefully maybe someday we won't need it, but I'm glad that we're moving forward and continuing to use it.
Councilmember Recreago?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great presentation here, and I know we didn't get to see it up on the screen, and so just asking, I guess, the mayor or city manager, can we get this put up on our website? I think this is some really good data that I think the public has had great support for Spot Shotter over the years that it's been here. As a matter of fact, it's probably something that has been asked to be expanded rather than contracted. So if we can get that presentation up. And just a couple of comments, having seen the expansion, having seen when it first came in, and when this was first presented, I remember having a lot of questions about, as a citizen of Peoria, is this something that is really needed? Why is it needed? And to see the utilization in this, to be able to pinpoint locations to a lot closer, to be able to effectively send officers into a situation where they know what is going on, or if it is a moving situation, or if it's a stagnant situation. But I think also being able to help, because as you so eloquently stated, if we rely just on phone calls coming in, everybody else assumes that somebody else is calling. Plus, what you hear may not be in the actual direction that you think it is. And so we could be utilizing our limited force on the police department to be going in a lot of areas or situations where it's really not needed. So let's focus their attention where it's needed. Thank you for your work on this. Thank you for your data on this, because I think this really helps us as well. Chief, thank you for your leadership on this, and I appreciate this coming in front of us tonight to be able to make this decision. Thank you.
Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just one last question. Can you talk a little bit about the capability and bandwidth of ShotSpotter to handle large volumes of shots, maybe possibly on New Year's Eve, or also loud explosions like a 4th of July, in its capacity to be able to handle, receiving that data and then differentiate between what is a real shot and what is a firework going off.
So for those holidays specifically, ShotSpotter does shut down those sensors for that reason alone, because there are so many alerts. Now, we can go back, and let me rephrase that. They don't shut down the sensors. We don't get the alerts. So when we've had shootings, on January 1st before, we've had them several times, we are able to push that back to ShotSpotter, and they can go back into that data and actually narrow and pull that back out and then say that it was a shooting. But because of the amount of shootings that happen across the globe, through the review process, it would be impossible for the review team to get us all of those alerts with the same amount of accuracy. So the alerts are down, but the system is still up, and then we can review that audio retrospectively and have their experts re-examine to determine whether or not it was a gunfire.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome.
Just for some clarity though, yes, we do request that, but we do go back and check all those shot spotters, and reports are written on each one of those, even though we're not getting the alerts during that specific time.
Councilmember Recreago?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Chief, one last question, actually a question for you, is I think that you've seen the support of the council and of our city when you need the right technology, the right equipment, that we're there to be able to get you the right things. And is it your request, is it your understanding that this is a productive tool within the array of tools that the department may use for the city of Peoria?
Absolutely, and I'm glad you say an array of tools, because that's exactly what it is. It is a tool, and we have policies that oversee how we use these tools, so yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's a conversation I had earlier with the chief in talking about ShotSpotter. He indicated that ShotSpotter is a tool in our toolbox. We manage it. It does not manage us. And we want you to have the tools that you need to reduce crime, to solve crimes. And I think that this is a great tool, and there's been no problems or issues with it. So I look forward to the continuation of the contract. We have a motion on the floor, a second. If there's no other discussion, please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, gentlemen. Madam Clerk?
23-149 is a communication from the City Manager and Director of Public Works regarding the Adams and Jefferson Signal Upgrade one-way to two-way conversion project, Adams Street from William Kumpf Boulevard to Hamilton Boulevard and Jefferson Avenue from William Kumpf Boulevard to Fayette Street, with a request for the following. A, to approve a local agency agreement for federal participation with the Illinois Department of Transportation to request 90% HSIP federal funding in an amount not to exceed $1,804,551. And B, to approve a resolution authorizing the city's estimated minimum local agency funding match of $9,195,449, subject to IDOT approval. And C, approve a state motor fuel tax resolution in the amount of $3,200,000 for construction costs. And D, approve an agreement for a reimbursement of construction costs to state facilities with IDOT in an amount not to exceed $47,679. And we will need a motion on each item.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councilmember Recreago?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Please let the record show that I'll be abstaining from this vote.
Okay. Councilmember Euler?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Move to approve item A.
There's a second. Seconded by Councilmember Graham. Any discussion? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes with one abstention. Recreago. Councilmember Euler?
Move to approve item B.
Seconded by Councilmember Graham. Any discussion? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes with one abstention. Rex Regal. Councilmember Euler,
Move to approve item C.
seconded by Councilmember Graham. Any discussion? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes with one abstention. Rex Regal. Councilmember Euler,
Move to approve item D.
seconded by Councilmember Graham. Any discussion? Please cast your ballots. Okay. Motion passes with one abstention. Rex Regal, Councilmember Graham had hit the wrong button. Okay. Thank you. Madam Clerk?
23-150 is a communication from the city manager with a request to approve a resolution naming the parcel located at 3917 Southwest Adams Street to Freedom and Remembrance Memorial Park.
Manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This item is very simple. We're just simply looking to designate the area where we currently have accepted the land from the roofers for the Memorial Park for the Moffett Cemetery to be officially named as the Freedom and Remembrance Memorial Park.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Jackson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just had a quick comment. I just wanted to thank Mr. Hofer and his committee for their years of work on such a fine project, and I look forward to the dedication in just a few months or weeks, and I would encourage each and every one of my colleagues around the Horseshoe, when this project is complete, to please stop by and visit. It is a very worthwhile project, I think, for the entire city of Peoria. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Would you like to make a motion?
Absolutely. With that, I'd like to make a motion that item number 23-150 be approved.
Seconded by Councilmember Graham. Any discussion? Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hofer, Mr. Pittman, the entire team. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk?
23-151 is a communication from the city manager and director of community development with a request to concur with recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Commission and staff, or Planning and Zoning Commission, to adopt Ordinance A, or from staff to adopt Ordinance B, amending Appendix A, the Unified Development Code, relating to medical adult use cannabis dispensaries, cultivation centers, craft growers, infusers, and processors.
Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to turn the microphone over to Director Doolan to walk through the discussion that was held at the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Manager. Thank you, Council. The item before you tonight is the code changes that went before the Planning and Zoning Commission based on the policy session and the changes the ordinance already made. The main highlights that we discussed, there was a split recommendation between Planning and Zoning Commission and staff. Ordinance A in front of you is the recommendation by the Planning and Zoning Commission, and then Ordinance B we felt reflected your guidance and direction at our last policy session, so that's staff's recommendation. Both items replace the permitted use process with the special use in industrial areas. Both require that the special use expires after 6 months, but does allow for a 6 months extension if a process is in the middle of being built, things like that, and they're wrapping it up by the city manager. In addition, the city would be no longer accepting special use applications if all the licenses have been passed out by the city of Peoria. Council made the decision to limit it to 6 licenses. We didn't want people just to be applying for special uses if there was no hope of them getting a license. So that could be adjusted in the future if the license requirement is adjusted as well. The difference between the two recommendations is the Planning and Zoning Commission felt that these uses should be allowed in the warehouse district, and the guidance that staff felt it got from council is that in all form districts in the city, we wanted to prohibit their use. So those would be the differences in the two recommendations.
Discussion, Councilmember Jensen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Director Doolin. I would like to just go ahead and make a motion to approve Ordinance B.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Rodrigo. Continued discussion, Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Director Doolin. Just a point of clarification, when you say that we're not going to no longer accept special use applications once the maximum number has been issued, is that the maximum number of special use permits that are out there, or once they have actually turned key and opened up their establishment?
With the reduced amount of time that special uses are eligible for, that would be once we have 6 applications and 6 connections to licenses in the process. So if an applicant has a state license and they're approved and they go through the special use process, that's when we would limit them at 6. So not necessarily turnkey because those special uses expire sooner, but we'd be looking kind of at that ratio.
Sure. Thank you, Director Doolin. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Welcome. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Doolin, I see in the minutes from the Planning and Zoning Commission, there was at least one question from a commissioner regarding the form district issue. Was there any input from the public on this? Was there any?
No public attended the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
And I think you've reflected the desire of the council very well in Ordinance B. So if there was no outcry, that was the one request, one hesitation, I should say, I had a month ago. So thank you for that clarification.
We have a motion to approve item B. We have a second there. If there's no other discussion, please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you, Director Doolin. Madam Clerk?
23-152 is a communication from the City Manager and Corporation Council with a request to consider the site application for a Class B restaurant 50% food liquor license with on-site consumption and retail sale of alcohol for Juan El Alejandre Concilion, doing business as Tequila Jalisco and Tejidos Mexicanos, 2200 West War Memorial Drive, number DU 19A, with a recommendation from the Liquor Commission to deny.
Councilmember Allen?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. On behalf of the petitioner, I would like to make a motion to withdraw this site application.
And is the petitioner present?
Juan, are you present, sir? I received an email earlier. I don't see Juan present, but I do have an email documenting that they would like to withdraw their
You have
application.
a written request to withdraw.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Kelly. A discussion? Councilmember Seer?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a point here, Mr. Manager. What is the difference between a no or withdrawing an application?
If I may, thank you for the question. Our ordinances in a few different spots on different types of requests indicate that if it's denied, there's some period of time where the petitioner can't come back with the same request unless there's some alteration of the terms or what they're seeking. In this instance, it's 6 months for a liquor site approval, where if that's denied, they can't come back for another time to council without substantially altering their request somehow. If they ask a second time and are denied, that period of time is expanded to a year. This also applies in similar fashion to map amendments, variances, and special use permits. A couple of months ago, we had a similar circumstance, and I felt like and indicated that the motion to withdraw was in order. One of the things we'll be attending to, along with council rules, is making a suggestion to change our zoning ordinance and our liquor ordinance to a rule that council will adopt about this practice rather than have it be informal. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Hayes. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're very welcome. Councilmember Riggenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Corporation Council, if I may follow up on that, because I believe when we had this come up before, there were some of us who remember a withdrawal. There was never a vote on a withdrawal. So is that part of the clarification that you and your staff will be working on? Because it seems counterintuitive to me that if they're telling us they're withdrawing their request, why we would vote on it at all.
So this body acts by making votes. After the last episode, I was put on inquiry and found that at times in the past, staff had accommodated people's requests for withdrawal by just withdrawing, and that would occur prior to the agenda being published. And so I felt like rather than defeat or defy the practice in the past of offering that grace to applicants, we should continue with this process. I'm more comfortable with this body actually articulating its will by a vote and dealing with whatever that outcome is. And then we'll try to develop a rule procedure that works for everybody, protects the body and its sensibilities, staff, but also applicants, and gives them clarity and predictability. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doesn't it? Yes. So the motion is to withdraw. Continue discussion. Councilmember Kelly?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Corporation Council, further clarification. Should we be voting to withdraw or to agree that it be withdrawn, or should we be voting to deny?
I am unable to answer that question because this body gets to do what its will is, and I won't tell it what it should or shouldn't do. But in this circumstance, I'd recommend that the body consider that we want to encourage applicants to come forward. And when they meet with obstacles, we want to open the door to other opportunities that meet with our body's decisions. And in this specific circumstance, the denial is based on the fact that the physical structure involved with this just doesn't work. It would turn the mall's food court into a liquor court, which those are the types of troubles we don't want to encounter. So I think in this circumstance, there's no practical reality that they'd ever be able to alter it in a way where you'd approve it. That said, I think that the folks that come forward to us and ask for permission to things, probably because they're invested in things, should be able to withdraw them and maintain their sensibilities and options as best they could. It's tough to balance, but that's where I'm at. Thank you.
Okay, my question was not on the merits of the request. It was just procedural. But we can vote to withdraw or have it withdrawn or whatever. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
No other discussion. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at unfinished business. 23-123 is an appointment by Mayor Ali to the Mayor's Advisory Committee for the Disabled with a request to concur of E. Doug Gathers II.
There were some questions, I think, that were directed to Council Hayes as it related to appointing individuals that don't live within the city. In this case, this individual lives in West Peoria. He had applied to become part of the Mayor's Advisory Committee for the Disabled, and we noted that there are other individuals on commissions, certain commissions, that do not live in the city, and it's kind of a case-by-case situation. In this situation, there's not a lot of applicants that we have to this particular important commission, and I think there are 7, Mr. Manager, there's 7 people that serve on the commission. Did you have anything to add, Mr. Hayes?
Yes, if I could.
Council? Yes.
To the mayor's point, the ordinance that authorizes this committee talks about its composition and the terms of office. And this committee does not have a requirement that the members be residents, but it does have a requirement that the members shall be broadly representative of the community and shall be individuals who, by background, experience, training, and professional, shall have special interests and knowledge in the affairs and needs of disabled persons. And in addition, they shall include at least 5 members who are themselves disabled. This applicant meets that definition, although they're not a resident of the city, which is not what this particular committee was prioritizing. It was the knowledge of those issues and/or their particular demographics. So this individual meets those. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Can I get a motion to approve? Moved by Councilmember Sears, seconded by Councilmember Ruckriegel. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Madam Clerk?
We are at new business.
Is there any new business? Councilmember Velpula?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Actually, I would like to, brief up a small discussion that I had with Director Crotty and Director Doolin. So the issue is about how do we streamline various license processes for our local businesses, potentially looking at analyzing the license processes around one date. So I was hoping to get a report back from them. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
You're welcome. Councilmember Jackson?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a couple of things I wanted to ask the Community Development Director, Doolin, if he could do some research. A few months ago, I had inquired about the numbers of smoke/vaping shops in the city of Peoria. I just heard I know we have some issues with minors getting access to those materials, and they seem to be, cropping up everywhere. Is there any way, Director Doolin, we could possibly get a report in terms of how many businesses like that are available in the city, and maybe get a report a couple council meetings from now, if that's possible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, sir. And the other issue, the other one is just in the form of a statement for Director Doolin and the city staff. And I was very encouraged when I was called to sign the award letters for the number of grants. I was really not pleasantly, but I was surprised. District 1 had 7 grant applications, 6 of which were on the south side. So I was just happy to see that we have so many folks that are interested in taking on projects that are going to make a big difference in our community. So I would just like to thank the mayor and the staff for your recognizing the need for those types of projects, because quite frankly, I wasn't sure that they were all going to get awarded anything, but I was just happy to see that folks were so excited about getting out and getting busy around the city, and I hope that residents everywhere besides District 1 will take advantage of opportunities to make our community and our city and our neighborhood safer. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Very welcome.
You, Mr. Manager.
Councilmember Regenbach?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to thank everybody that participated in the Great American Cleanup last Saturday. After a string of 70 and 80-degree weather days, of course, Saturday was about 45 degrees, but that didn't stop the volunteers from showing up. And it was just great to see so many people taking care of their neighborhoods. And I was particularly proud as a council member to see so many city staffers out there, from community development to police and fire, and just a lot of City of Peoria logo shirts out there. So thank you to all the staff members that participated also. Then I just would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge item 23-138 that passed on the consent agenda this evening. That is the jurisdictional transfer of Glen Avenue between Sheridan Road and Knoxville. That particular stretch of road is something that's been on my radar since I was a county board member all those years ago. And it is one of the things that will go down in my memory book as something that I helped accomplish and that all of us helped accomplish and the county board helped accomplish. And it took a lot of effort through the years to get that done, but that road is going to be beautiful once it's completed. And I'm so glad that that jurisdictional transfer is being memorialized and taking place. So, thank you.
Welcome. Madam Clerk?
We are at citizens' opportunity to address the city council.
I have 4 individuals that have requested to speak. The first is Seth Peterson. Mr. Peterson?
I have a letter that I would like to read to the City Council. I want to start out by thanking Madam Mayor and everyone around the City Council for providing both myself and the Peoria area at large an open forum to bring awareness to issues that are important to us. That being said, I'll try to keep this as brief as I can so my fellow citizens can speak. My name is Seth Peterson, and I'm a reference assistant at Peoria Public Library's Lincoln branch. My job requires a bachelor's degree and preferably 1 year of experience in the library field, which I had when I accepted my position last year. However, with oppressive inflation and rampant price gouging across the country, my modest wage of $17.47 an hour has become a borderline poverty wage. I haven't been able to save money in months, and I fear that I will soon need to leave a job that I not only love, but envisioned as a career in order to put food on my table and pay my bills. Library leadership has done nothing to help alleviate this financial burden. Our administration in negotiations has only offered a 2% wage increase, which is 35 cents if I'm being generous and rounding up, and have now forced our negotiations into mediation. Make no mistake, our stewards have diligently crunched numbers using the library's publicly available budget and found that 2% is an arbitrarily low wage increase and that the library can easily afford more with its budget in this fiscal year. We know this for a fact. If I could take a moment to draw comparisons to other libraries in Central Illinois. The equivalent position to mine at Bloomington Public Library makes $21.47 an hour, which is $4 to the cent more than what I am currently paid. Springfield also pays $20 an hour for my equivalent position. Champaign makes in between $20 and $25 based on qualifications. To expand on this, I'm nowhere close to being the lowest paid employee at Peoria Public Library. Our entry-level positions, both full-time and part-time, are extremely underpaid and pay minimum wage. Smaller libraries, such as Chillicothe and Fond du Lac, are offering $2 to $5 more per hour for those entry-level positions. Your library is falling behind, fast. It's unacceptable that a city of Peoria's size and stature is paying its library employees so much less than the small towns surrounding it. I think it's high time that both library leadership and Peoria City Council stops ignoring such an important pillar of this city. When you refuse to invest in a library, your community is deprived of a resource that offers computer access, free meeting rooms, which many of the people in this room have utilized, and fun and educational programs. In short, when you don't invest in libraries and library employees, you, by definition, are not investing in your community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson. Vivian Taylor. Okay. Marcus Fogliano. Marcus.
Evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. I'm Reverend Marcus Fogliano. It has been a while since I've addressed you. I'm glad to be a resident of Peoria once again after moving to Chicago for grad school. So I'm here today to talk about Discover Peoria, and specifically about the LGBT community, not just within Peoria, but across our nation. This year alone, it has been reported that we have seen nearly, if not more than 500 anti-LGBT bills introduced at state legislators across the country. And Peoria, in our fair state, which is a beacon for the LGBT community, is represented by the most per capita LGBT officials in the state of Illinois. For an organization that is actively encouraging people to visit, to move, and to engage in our city, to have some homophobic tendencies is problematic. Last week, I was sitting in the airport in Atlanta, just looking at the billboards throughout the hallway, and I kept seeing this advertisement from the state of Illinois that the state of Illinois is in the middle of everything, encouraging people to move here. I think it is past time for the city of Peoria to engage in encouraging families that are being targeted, that are being threatened of having their children removed from them, to let them know that we are a safe city for them, that we are a strong LGBT community, and that we want them here. The actions of Discover Peoria have been the opposite of that, and I encourage the City Council to encourage that organization to fix itself and start to invite members of our community to a place where they will be safe and supported, which is not the case in states throughout the country. The other thing that I just wanted to mention, I recently went to a Peoria County meeting, and they actually have members of the community speak first. I witnessed at the last City Council meeting around the conversation about ShotSpotter that the representatives from the organization left before the community had an opportunity to share their viewpoints about the program. I know you were able to hear it, even though members of the community were here for hours, as you were, waiting for their opportunity to speak. I think it's very important that you consider reordering the agenda to put community comments first so that we can share our viewpoints with you before you take important votes. Thank you.
You're welcome. Alexander Martin.
Hello, Madam Mayor and City Council. Thank you so much for having me. I am Alexander Martin. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I am an artist, performer, and professor who lives in Peoria, Illinois. I am too here to speak on Discover Peoria. Late in the year, December 2021, there was a video made of me to bring in people to Peoria. It was of my journey moving here about 9 years ago, my love for the city, the joy that I found here, my path to my career here, and I found out months later that that was taken down. I heard there was discrepancy amongst the board and that they were working to put it back up. Well, a year later, from a reliable source within the organization, I heard it was taken down by the executive director for reasons of transphobia and homophobia. The video was deemed too much for the public. My experience in Peoria, the city that I love, that I moved here to live in and engage with, was deemed too much for the public. In a time when so many bills are being passed against our community, so many places are not safe for us to live. I am from rural West Virginia. I don't even feel safe going back home now because of legislature being passed there. This city is a safe haven. This state is a safe haven with bills passed where I am legally protected, where my community is legally protected. I ask that you take in consideration who is being represented by our Tourism Bureau, who is being covered. This year alone, I need to pull up notes, sorry. This year alone, out of all the coverage they've made on their website, on their Facebook and YouTube, they have covered more events in St. Patrick's Day, golf courses, throwback posts in Peoria than they have for Black History Month, Women's History Month, art events happening in the city. There's never been any coverage of Pride Month or the events put on by my community. Lack of coverage for Juneteenth. None of this has been presented. They have spent more time covering the area surrounding our city than the heart and soul that lives here within. I wrote a letter to them asking for an apology to the community. I do not care whether my video is put back up or shown, but I ask that they apologize for this act of censorship and that they say that they support the trans community, support the black community, support all of the marginalized voices that make this city wonderful. I was met with a non-apology and a generic DE&I statement. If you read the Journal Star, there was an article about this where the executive director said there was nothing to apologize for. Even if it was an honest mistake, an organization has to acknowledge the optics of censoring a black trans voice during this time in our country right now. There was no acknowledgement. So I ask that you please figure out a way to make our tourism bureau better represent our community, better represent our voices, better represent the people that live and love in this city. I have a letter that was drafted by a community member that has over 500 signatures. 300 of them are current Peoria residents or former residents. 181 of the signatures are residents of Illinois, and 77 other are concerned parties outside of the state, some of those being folks who were born and raised here but now live elsewhere in the world. The letter highlights the details of what was happened and what was done, and it calls for a plan of action. I would like an audit of their content to look at the diversity and equity and inclusion that they are doing, to actually look at the content they've released over the years and see if it reflects our community as a whole. I would like, sorry, I need to pull my notes. A formal apology and an action plan from Discover Peoria, and a formal apology for, even if it was an accident, the censorship that partook, the censorship that they took a part of. I would like an apology to the community, acknowledging that they support and uplift all voices in Peoria, not just a specific demographic, not just a specific area code. And if they keep presenting inadequate results, I would like actions taken for them to make better content, some sort of intervention from the city. Because as someone who lives here and is a taxpayer here, the fact that my tax money is going to an organization that wants to censor me and censor people like me in the city that I love, a city that I celebrate, a city that I encourage people to come to, is heartbreaking. So thank you very much for your time.
Very welcome. Madam Clerk?
We are at executive session.
I would like to invite a motion to adjourn and to convene in closed session immediately following adjournment of the City Council meeting pursuant to the Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 120/2C11 to discuss pending litigation and pursuant to the Open Meetings Act 5 ILCS 120/2C21 for approval by the body of closed session minutes. Please, motion moved by Councilmember Sears, seconded by Councilmember Ruckriegel. Please cast your ballots. Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for your service.